Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the most incredible stories of nation building you'll ever hear. It's the story of how a community of persecuted refugees built a thriving state, literally from scratch, in just one single year. So, how on earth did they pull this off? They showed up with nothing, and in a year, they had founded a state. Let's get into it. We're going to explore this critical first year in Medina and see how this community laid the foundations for a whole civilization by tackling four massive make-or-break problems head-on. All right, first, let's really try to put ourselves in their shoes. You have to grasp just how dire the situation was. The Muhajirun, these were the Muslim refugees from Makkah. They arrive in their new home of Medina facing just immense hardship. I mean, think about it. They weren't just displaced. They arrive with no home, no possessions. Many of them are getting physically ill from the new climate. And on top of that, they were intensely homesick. One of the early reports even says they miss the thorny plants in the dry valleys of Makkah. And all the while, looming over them is the constant threat from the powerful Quraysh they just escaped. So they had to build a brand new society from the ground up with the local people, the Ansar, who had so graciously welcomed them in. So problem number one is a social one. How do you take these two totally different groups, the locals, the Ansar, and these refugees, the Muhajirun, and turn them into a single, unified community, a real family? Well, the solution was absolutely genius. It was this revolutionary act of social engineering called the Muwaha. It literally means the brotherhood. And this wasn't just, a nice idea or a suggestion. It was a formal, divinely inspired system. And I want to be clear, this was not just some symbolic let's all be friends gesture. No, this was an incredibly practical system where the Prophet himself paired up each individual. The locals, the Ansar, shared everything. The bond was so real, so strong, that in the beginning, these new brothers would actually inherit from each other before their own blood relatives. Can you imagine that? And this one story just perfectly captures the spirit of what was happening. An Ansari man, Sa'd ibn al-Rabi, offered his new brother, Abd al-Rahman, half of his entire fortune, his home, even one of his businesses. Just incredible generosity. And Abd al-Rahman's response showed this equal measure of faith and dignity. He didn't ask for a handout. He just said, "Show me the way to the marketplace." It just shows you the mindset. The Ansar offered everything out of pure faith, and the Muhajirun, with that same faith, wanted to stand on their own 2 feet. Okay, so the social fabric is getting woven together beautifully. But now you've got a massive political problem. How are you going to govern the city? I mean, it's not just Muslims. You've got multiple Jewish tribes, you've got pagans, all living side by side. The answer was something completely unheard of for 7th century Arabia. They didn't just rely on old tribal customs. They created a formal, written political document, the Constitution of Medina. And when you actually look at what's in this constitution, it is just mind-blowing for its time. First, it defines all the Muslims, the locals and the refugees, as one single nation, or ummah. But then, and this is huge, it also recognizes the Jewish tribes as an ummah alongside the believers, granting them full religious freedom and autonomy over their own legal affairs. The central idea? Mutual defense. If Medina is attacked, everyone defends it, together. Okay, so we have social unity and a political blueprint. Now for problem number 3, identity. How does this new community forge its own unique spiritual identity, one that's distinct from everyone around them? This happened in 2 really big ways. First, the institution of the adhan, the call to prayer. They talked about using a horn like the Jewish tradition or bells like the Christians. But instead, something unique happened. The specific words of the adhan came through a vivid shared dream, which was then confirmed by the Prophet as being from God. But the second change was even more dramatic, and that was the Qibla, the direction of prayer. Now, for over 13 years, think about that, 13 years in Makkah, plus another 16 or so months here in Medina, the Muslims had prayed facing Jerusalem. And then suddenly, the command came down, turn and face the Kaaba in Makkah. And this change wasn't just about geography. It was a profound test of faith. Could you, in an instant, change a practice you've held for over a decade just based on a command? It was also this powerful statement of a new, unique identity, one rooted in the Abrahamic tradition for sure, but now centered on its original, most ancient house of worship. All right, So the internal house is in order. But that brings us to the fourth and maybe the most urgent problem of all, the existential threat from the outside. Remember, the powerful Quraysh back in Mecca, they haven't forgotten or forgiven. You have to understand the huge shift that happened here. For 13 long years in Mecca, the command was always about patience, to endure with beautiful patience. But now, in Medina, with the establishment of a state, the dynamic changes completely. A new revelation comes down, giving permission for active defense. And listen to the wording. It's not a command for aggression. It's permission given because they had been wronged, because they were unjustly kicked out of their own homes. And they didn't wait around. This new permission was acted on immediately through a series of strategic expeditions. Now, the goal here wasn't conquest, not at all. It was all about strategy. First, to send a clear message to the Quraysh. We are now a force to be reckoned with. Second, to go out and form alliances with other tribes along the trade routes. And third, and this is key, to challenge the economic lifeline of the Quraysh, their major trade caravans going up to Syria. So all of these early expeditions, these small but really smart moves, particularly that attempt to intercept Abu Sufyan's caravan, they were all setting the stage. They were the opening moves in a chess match that was about to lead to the first major, decisive confrontation in Islamic history, the Battle of Badr, a battle that would change everything. So let's just recap. From a brotherhood pact that eliminated poverty, to a constitution that guaranteed pluralism, to a new spiritual direction and a military ready for defense, in just one single year, a community on the brink of collapse solved its existential problems. They turned a moment of absolute crisis into the very foundation of a civilization.